Just as a preliminary comment, I have some Saskatchewan roots for those that are from here. My dad was born and raised in a little town south of Regina called Rollo, made famous by Corner Gas. And Michelle and I served as Western Ontario and National Office Youth and Young Adult Directors, and then pastored in Calgary, Alberta, at a church called Mid-Park Christian Assembly, and now we're in Kennedy Road Tabernacle. I've got a picture that I want to be on the screen of our family. We have 6 children. In 1996, we had a little girl born named Claire, and she lived for 2 hours and then went to heaven. And several months after that, we were expecting again, and Michelle was experiencing some difficulty in the pregnancy. We went to our high-risk obstetrician, and he told us the disappointing news that we were miscarrying and that she should come back in a couple days for a D&C. We heard his words, but we know our God. And we went home and we prayed together. Michelle got in bed, and she spent the next 6 months in bed. And in October of 1997, a beautiful little baby girl was born. We named her Emma Grace. And what a miracle she was to our life. She immediately brought healing and hope to our hearts and to our church, and we just thank God for her. The picture that you see on the screen is from our 25th anniversary in May of 2012, and I want to tell you a little bit about Emma. And she's standing right in front of me in the hot pink jacket, and she's just an incredible young woman. She loved Jesus with all of her heart, and she was a worshiper. She loved to sing. She loved to worship the Lord. Another thing she loved was babies, and she would do anything she could to hold babies and spend time with children, and she just was an incredible young woman of God. In fact, one of our children's pastors, Pastor Diane, invested in Emma's life in such a way that Emma was sensing a call to ministry. And she shared her faith, and everyone loved to be with Emma. Michelle couldn't be here at conference because she's at home caring for the rest of our kids, especially our youngest, Alana. But I wanted her to tell you part of the story.
On September 12th, 2012, our daughter, who was 14 years old at the time, Emma, was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, a rare form of childhood cancer. We went into what we were facing with a lot of hope and a lot of faith, and we fought very, very hard. Emma, throughout the whole journey, was a fighter, and she was strong, and she held on to her faith in Jesus. We finished her initial treatment at 4.5 months, living in the hospital full-time, 24/7, me on a little cot in her room, and went home being told that she was in remission. On the way home from the hospital, she insisted on going to school and spent the afternoon there with her friends. She was always a constant encouragement and blessing to her friends throughout it, who many could only communicate with her through social media. She became friends with whoever she could at the hospital, especially with her nurses who loved her. She was always smiling, always saying thankful. She got to be home for about 2.5 months. We had a wonderful family vacation. We came home and she was not feeling well again, and we were back at the hospital, and the leukemia was back. We started treatment again immediately. The first round of chemo did nothing, and so they began a more aggressive treatment, and we were moving towards bone marrow transplant. She had 2 perfect matches in her sisters, again giving us hope. But her body started shutting down, and she was to go in for surgery. All of us were there. We were telling her to think about her Sweet 16, and we were going to spend it in Paris. We told her we loved her. She told us she loved us. She was feisty and believing for the best, and went into surgery, and they were not able to do the surgery because her heart stopped functioning. They tried multiple times to resuscitate her, but after a time were not able to do that anymore. And she went to be with Jesus. And it is not the outcome that we hoped and believed for, but we trust in God. And we don't just trust him when things go the way that we want them to. We trust in him in all things. And now Emma is alive in heaven. She's alive in heaven. And we have the hope of seeing her again. And we look forward to that day. And I know now, as I live this life on earth without her, I can catch glimpses of heaven, especially when worshiping, and know that she is doing the exact same thing right at the throne of God. And so our hope remains in him. Our faith remains strong in spite of pain, in spite of questions, in spite of disappointments. And we choose to surrender to him and to his purposes in our lives.
We want to thank you for standing with us in prayer during this time. One of the prophecies that were spoken over her life ever since she was a little baby, that she was going to influence the nations. And so you can imagine the disappointment in our hearts as we're thinking, okay, God, we had this prophecy, we had this hope, and now this. And as we were mourning her loss and planning the celebration of life service for Emma, God really inspired us with a thought that Emma loved babies. She loved missions. She was looking forward to going on a mission trip. And God dropped in our hearts, so why don't we build homes around the world in Emma's honor? And we began something that's called Emma's House. And in March of this year, our family had the privilege of traveling to Uganda, to the city of Kampala, to be with Gary and Marilyn, and then north to the city of Gulu, that they talked about the other night. And we built the first Emma's House in Uganda and dedicated to, in her honor, for the children of Watoto, and it's so exciting. We've been able to raise enough funds through donations of friends in our church and around the world to start a second home with Villages of Hope in Zimbabwe, and we're excited that you can see the construction is already underway. And we have more money that has come in, and we're hoping to build a home next year in the country of Rwanda, another Emma's House. And I really believe that as we continue just to trust God, that we can see Emma influence the nations. Hallelujah. During the fight, Michelle mentioned that one of the ways we stayed encouraged was dreaming about the future. And so for Emma, we dreamed about going to Paris for her birthday in October of last year. And after she died, the disappointment was there. We decided we're going to go to Paris anyway. And so we traveled as a family to Paris, and we got to the Eiffel Tower, which was what her dream was. And we took pictures on this beautiful October day in front of the Eiffel Tower. Now, the lineups were huge. If you've ever been there before, it's such a tourist attraction. And the kids weren't wanting to go to the top because the lines were so big. And I said, guys, we've got to go. If Emma was here, she would be going with us to the top of this tower. So I'm going, Michelle's going, and you can come too. And we ended up going to the top. If you've been there, you know there's 2 lifts that get you to the top of the Eiffel Tower. And it was at the top of the Eiffel Tower that the emotions broke through my life. And I got off the elevator and I started crying like a baby, just sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sure people there thought I was maybe having a breakdown or something. And I was just weeping. And I thought, well, I'm here at the top. I better see what the city looks like. So I wiped the tears from my eyes so I could take a look at the city. And as I looked out over the city on that beautiful day, here's what I saw. I began to weep again, and immediately all God's promises flooded through my mind. That He will wipe every tear from our eyes. That weeping lasts for a night, but joy comes in the morning. He will never leave us. He'll never forsake us. His grace is enough. He gives us power in weakness. He's able to do immeasurably more than everything we can ask or imagine. I have to tell you, the days are tough. We miss Emma immensely. But we hold on to the hope that we have in Jesus, the promises of God, and the hope of heaven. And we're encouraged to know that we will be reunited. God bless you.